300-pound dudes tackling you on a frozen field, the last thing you want to do is stay out there. Believe me, the Rams players were thinking about the jacuzzi at their team hotel, that they find it laughable, but more laughable if they totally disregard the trade whatsoever. This guy has transformed the balance of power in the Eastern Conference. And you could argue the entire defense is going to be absolutely ferocious next year. But if your number one priority is to win a Super Bowl, then J.J. Watt is making a grave mistake. To ride this Chad Henne experiment for an entire game, I might need a whole bottle of Hennessy just to get through that. Guy who's won 8 division titles, who's made 5 AFC championship appearances, who's reached the Super Bowl 3 times and has won 2 Super Bowls for this organization. Aaron Rodgers has only won 1 Super Bowl with Green Bay. Drew Brees has only won 1 Super Bowl with New Orleans. There's only 13 quarterbacks in NFL history that have won multiple Super Bowls, and Big Ben is one of those individuals. Good morning and welcome to Morning Joe right here on J&J Media Network, Facebook Live, Twitter, and on YouTube. I'm Jonah Malkin with you every single Monday and Wednesday morning. Hope you all had a lovely 4th of July weekend. I know that I certainly had a lot in sports to discuss. You can check out Morning Joe every Monday and Wednesday morning on Facebook Live, Twitter, and on YouTube. Appreciate you taking some time on a Wednesday morning. A lot to get into in the NBA Finals. Some big news out of the Olympic track and field governing body regarding Sha'Carri Richardson. I'm going to touch on that and my reaction to the match and some big-time European Championship soccer games. There was a lot to discuss, but I have to start with Game 1 of the NBA Finals. Took place last night between the Phoenix Suns and the Milwaukee Bucks. The Suns beat the Bucks pretty solidly, pretty handily yesterday, 118-105. They take Game 1 of this best-of-7 series. And one of the beautiful things about sports is that there are always opportunities for history, whether it's an individual, whether it's a team. There are always opportunities to witness historical moments, historical achievements, whether it's Tom Brady winning his 7th Super Bowl this year and the first with the Bucks organization in his first season, whether it's the Clippers reaching the Western Conference Finals this year for the first time in their franchise's history, or LeBron becoming the first player to win Finals MVP for 3 different teams like he did with the Lakers last year. There's so many opportunities to witness history. And one of the reasons why this series between the Bucks and the Suns, to me, is so intriguing, is because there's not only opportunities to witness history, there are opportunities to witness groundbreaking history between both of these two teams. You think about the history of the Phoenix Suns. Obviously, this is the first time that they've reached the NBA Finals since 1993. They've never won an NBA title as a franchise, so they're seeking that elusive title. You have Chris Paul playing in his first NBA Finals. He's seeking his first NBA title. And then on the other side, you have Giannis trying to lead the Bucks to a championship since 1971, which was the only time that they won a championship with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and Oscar Robertson. And you've got Giannis on a personal level trying to become just the 2nd European player to lead his franchise to an NBA title. Dirk Nowitzki did it in 2011 with the Mavericks. So from a groundbreaking historical perspective, this is what makes this series so intriguing to watch. Is it's not just individual players, but you have teams, you have franchises, you have cities, you have countries that are potentially looking at this as a monumental moment and a monumental milestone for their franchise. And one of the beautiful things and one of the things I love the most about sports is that we get to witness greatness at the highest level. I relish the opportunity to see the best guys on the biggest stages of their season and of their careers performing hopefully at a high level. And CP3 absolutely personified greatness last night. 32 points, 9 assists on 12 of 19 shooting, 4 of 4 from the from the free throw line, 4 of 7 from the 3-point line. He was in his bag. He was carving out the defense. He was orchestrating the offense. He was getting switches onto bigs, blowing by them. CP3 was an absolute magician yesterday, and the greatness that he's been personifying not only last night, but you look at CP3 over his last 3 most important games of his career. And you can argue the 3 biggest games of Chris Paul's career have all taken place within this same postseason. Game 4 against the Denver Nuggets in the Western Conference semifinals. That was to reach just the second Western Conference Finals and a conference finals appearance for Chris. And he goes out and drops 37.7 assists on 73% shooting on the road in Game 4 to sweep the Nuggets. Game 6 against the Clippers, 41 points, 8 rebounds, 66% shooting, 7 for 8 from the three-point line. And then you look, and that was to advance to his first ever NBA title. And then you look at his biggest game of his career, Game 1 of the NBA Finals. He's never played in the NBA Finals, and he drops 32-9 on 63% shooting. So Chris Paul, it's not just that he personifies greatness, which is what he's been doing, but the biggest question mark surrounding him was, would he be able to elevate his game at this stage of his career? At age 36, was he good enough? Was he healthy enough to be able to play this effectively this late in his career? And clearly, the answer is yes. Up until this point, 16 points in the third quarter alone on 6 for 7 shooting. This is a guy who was an 11-time All-Star, 10-time All-NBA player, 9-time All-NBA defensive player, 2-time Olympic gold medalist, won the Rookie of the Year award in 2005-2006 in that season. He has been transcendent when he's been playing the biggest games of his career this postseason. And I think that leadership is such an invaluable trait, and it's such an important part of a team's success that isn't discussed enough, especially as it relates to Chris Paul, because the intangibles that he provides has clearly rubbed off on this Phoenix Suns team. You're getting production from guys that really weren't contributing much last year, just when he wasn't there. DeAndre Ayton, another huge performance, 22 points, 19 rebounds. I've said this before. He's been the most consistent player for the Phoenix Suns this entire postseason. Devin Booker, once again, 27 points, and even called Chris Paul in the postgame the greatest leader he's ever had. Now, again, whether you agree or disagree with that comment, the fact that he's gushing about Chris Paul when we've seen that his previous teammates never gush about Chris Paul the way that Devin Booker has, the way that Cam Johnson and Mikal Bridges and Cameron Payne and DeAndre Ayton and these guys have gushed, and Monty Williams have gushed about Chris Paul. And you have guys like Cameron Payne and Johnson and Bridges scoring in double digits, double figures, contributing. That leadership, it's the leadership and the confidence that he's been instilling into his teammates. That's what's most noticeable and what's been, quite frankly, more impressive. And so when I look at this Phoenix Suns team, not only was Game 1 an impressive win just because it's the NBA Finals and because they had to win Game 1 to set the tone for the series, but it was tailor-made for them. They had more rest. They had longer time to prepare. And quite frankly, they were riding the momentum of playing in their first NBA Finals since 1993. And I think it's fair to say that that crowd and the Phoenix Suns arena perhaps has been the most difficult road venue this postseason. The Phoenix Suns have won Game 1 in every single round of this postseason. And I don't think that's a coincidence. Clearly, it's not a coincidence. And so they took care of business in Game 1, as they should, and it was all sparked by Chris Paul, who once again has just been tremendous. And this team that was once viewed as a young team is growing up before your very eyes. Now, on the flip side, for the Milwaukee Bucks, I was actually very impressed with Giannis Antetokounmpo. And when you think about Giannis, how he played 35 minutes yesterday, 20 points, 17 rebounds, 4 assists, 6 for 11 from the floor, so above 50% from the floor, 7 for 12 from the free throw line. Now, listen, that's what you're going to get with Giannis. But what I liked about that was that it showed that he was still aggressive. He was still attacking the basket. He displayed that explosiveness off of his knee, and he was even 1 for 2 from the three-point line, and the three-pointer that he shot was a rhythm three in transition. He shot it with absolute confidence and stroked it. And that's what I was looking to see, and I had no expectations for Giannis. This is a guy who hyperextended his knee just a week ago. Literally a week ago, we were knocking on wood, praying that this wasn't going to be the end of Giannis this postseason that we were going to see. Fortunately, it wasn't, and he came back and provided a huge spark, and so he was really impressive yesterday. I thought Chris Middleton individually was pretty solid. I've seen him play better, but he was pretty good, 29 points. But then you have Drew Holiday with a pedestrian performance. My UCLA guy, Drew Holiday, 10 points, 9 rebounds, 7 assists. I know it looks good on paper, but 4 for 14 from the floor, not aggressive enough. And this has been the one superlative that we've always said about the Milwaukee Bucks, through thick and through thin, is consistency or lack thereof. Because there's only been a handful of games this postseason that we've seen the Bucks' big three of Holiday, of Giannis, of Middleton actually play well together at the same time. There's only been about a handful of games. On the one hand, you've got Game 6 against the Brooklyn Nets. You had Game 4 against the Brooklyn Nets. You had one game in Game 2 against the Hawks when you won by 34 points. So those 3 games were good. And then against the Miami Heat, as a collective series, you played pretty well. But this is supposed to be the consistent big three, and that's always been the issue with the Milwaukee Bucks, is not a lack of talent, but you've got Giannis obviously compromised on the knee, giving you everything he has. Chris Middleton drops 29, and you've got Holiday that scores only 10 points. That can't happen. And then if you're Mike Budenholzer, listen, I give you credit for reaching the NBA Finals. You're a good coach. You've obviously won the NBA Coach of the Year twice. You've had multiple 60-win seasons with the Bucks and with the Atlanta Hawks. But you've got to start making some more in-game adjustments, especially defensively. You're seeing that Chris Paul is carving your defense. Maybe put Drew Holiday and assign Drew Holiday to Chris Paul for longer stretches of the game, because they just kept they were willing to switch everything, and the Suns exploited that. And so I think that there needs to be a little bit more urgency out of that big three. Again, not including Giannis, because he's still recovering from the knee injury. And the mere fact that he's out there should be inspiring enough. Chris Middleton played okay again, and Brook Lopez actually contributed with 17 points. So you got production out of him, but that's when you need Drew Holiday to chip in more than 10. Now, I'm not going to be pessimistic about the Bucks. I don't think that it was a bad loss. There are a lot of positives that you can take away, a lot of things to work on. But they certainly have to address those issues in Game 2. Have to start making those adjustments. So yesterday was fun, not only because the NBA Finals were taking place, but the 4th edition of The Match, the fundraising golf event, took place yesterday. This is obviously the 4th edition. This one was between Bryson DeChambeau and Aaron Rodgers versus Phil Mickelson and Tom Brady. Of course, the very first edition was just Mickelson and Tiger Woods. Second edition was Phil and Brady versus Tiger and Peyton Manning. And that was the first edition, because now what they're starting to do is adding a pair of golfers. They're pairing a golfer with a well-known professional athlete. So last year's second rendition was Phil Mickelson and Charles Barkley versus Steph and Peyton Manning, and obviously this year Bryson and Aaron versus Phil and Tom. And first of all, the setting of this event at the Reserve Golf Course at Moonlight Basin in South Montana was just picturesque, like a mountainous type of setting. It was just absolutely beautiful. And it's a very difficult course, let alone for a professional. When you add amateurs like Tom and Aaron Rodgers onto this course, it's elevated 7,500 feet. So your balls are absolutely flying. If you miss it off of the fairway, if you don't get it in the fairway, you've got a couple yards on the sides of it to get it in the rough. But after that, it's pretty much just a ravine. So you're hitting from the side of the mountain because that's how it slopes downward. So this was a very difficult course, but a tremendous event from a charitable perspective. They raised $2.6 million, 6.3 million meals for Feeding of America. That went to Feeding America, $2.6 million to My Brother's Keeper, to that foundation. So from a charitable aspect, it was absolutely sensational. And one of the things that I love about this event that they've started to do is that it offers a little sneak peek into the competitiveness of some of these golfers and some of these athletes in a different situation. You hear them all mic'd up and they're trash talking, they're exchanging different barbs and quips and uttering funny remarks to one another. You have Phil taking shots at Aaron Rodgers on the 16th hole about Tom Brady. This is the equivalent of a 4th and 3 from 8 yards at the 8-yard line, obviously poking fun at the field goal. You've got Aaron Rodgers referencing his calves and making fun and mocking Phil Mickelson's belt buckle. You got Charles Barkley commenting on Baker Mayfield's shirt, thinking that it's a robe as opposed to a silk shirt. So from an entertaining and amusing standpoint, it's absolutely fantastic. It's great television. It's jolly. It's entertaining. You come away with a lot of laughs, and it's all for a great cause. Now, the reason why this year to me, though, was so interesting was because of the pairing. You got Tom Brady and you've got Aaron Rodgers. That's what made this year so different, is that's such a recent rivalry between these two guys. And obviously Phil is hilarious and he's a big talker. And that's one of the things that's made Phil Mickelson who he is the fact that he constantly tries to take digs at his opponents. And Bryson DeChambeau, to his credit, I thought we got a little bit more of a sense of his personality. And he was funny as well. And not to mention, he launched a drive 480 yards on a 77-yard hole. Now, I understand that the actual hole was on a downward slope, but do you realize how far hitting a driver 480 yards is, even on a downward slope like that Bryson DeChambeau hit? He absolutely crushed that tee-off shot. It was absolutely sensational. But again, what made it interesting, and the reason why this was enticing to see, was it was because of the dynamic of Rodgers and Brady. And I know that not everyone believes in moral victories. But to me, this was about as close to a moral victory that I think Aaron Rodgers is going to experience against Tom Brady, because you oftentimes, sports sometimes has an unconventional way of exacting revenge, and sometimes an unnecessarily cruel way of exacting revenge. And so Aaron Rodgers, obviously we know Tom Brady just knocked off Aaron Rodgers in the NFC Championship at Lambeau to reach the Super Bowl. And so that obviously left a salty taste in Aaron Rodgers' mouth, and he didn't get any chance to exact revenge and to kind of vindicate that loss. And this was the first time that he got a chance to experience just a little sweet victory over Tom Brady. Both of these guys are extremely competitive, but and all I could think about watching Aaron Rodgers yesterday was how badly he probably wanted to win this match, this charity event, because he's not going to get many head-to-head matchups against Brady moving forward. He may not ever play him again with a chance to go to the Super Bowl. And obviously he was very coy and unresponsive about his future with the Packers when he was questioned about that on air. But I think it was only fitting that it was Brady who missed a tying putt, and then it was Aaron Rodgers who won the match hitting a 10-foot birdie putt. And he gave his little Phil thumbs up and this kind of symbol, hand gesture symbol. And so I thought it was probably a great moment for Aaron Rodgers. I know selfishly, from his perspective, it's not going to reach the same level of satisfaction as beating Tom Brady in an NFC championship game would. But I think this is about the best and the next closest thing that you can get to some form of vindication. And that's all I could think about. And some moral victory for Aaron Rodgers to go into this offseason, at least psychologically, against this guy. So that's all that I could think about was the fact that here you've got Aaron Rodgers going up again against Tom Brady. This is obviously a friendly setting, but nonetheless, these are all competitors. They all want to compete. They're all competitive. They want to win at every single thing they do. And I think that shined through. So I know that not everyone has been watching the European Championships, but I did find it interesting that yesterday was one of those rare, big-time, marquee matchups featuring two actually prominent and decorated soccer nations, Italy and Spain. Italy obviously beat Spain in penalties yesterday, 1-1, 4-2 in the penalty shootout. But you look at Italy and Spain, two countries that are known for their soccer culture, among other things, but especially their soccer culture. In Italy in particular, they've only won one European championship that came in 1968. But this is a nation that's won the World Cup 4 times. They have advanced past the group stage at the European Championship 7 times. And you look at their last 3 European championships. They made it to the quarterfinals. They finished as the runner-ups, and they made it to the quarterfinals. And now they're in the finals again. So Italy, only one time, again, they've won the European Championship, but they're 21-17-6 all time. They're 3-2-2 versus Spain all time. In fact, they just beat Spain in the last European Championship 2-0 in 2016. And entering this game and this match, Italy had won 32 consecutive international matches. Think about the consistency you have to sustain to reach that milestone, to reach that mark. So you've got Italy on one side, and you've got Spain, who's won the European Championship 3 times, back-to-back in 2008 and 2012. They obviously won also in 1964. Spain won the World Cup in 2010. And in their European Championship career, they're 21-15-10 all time. And you've got these two powerhouses in the semifinals with a chance to reach the finals. Between these two countries, they've won a combined 4 European championships and 5 World Cups. That's remarkable. This was their 7th meeting in the European Championship, which is the most all-time of any 2 nations. They've epitomized and embodied consistency year in and year out. You had the Xavi days with Barcelona. You had the Andre Pirlo days with Italy. You can go down the list, but soccer is one of the few sports where stats don't matter. Because at the end of the day, the game can change in a matter of 30 seconds. You can be dominating a team in every single statistical category. Dominate possession, dominate corner kicks, dominate shots on goal, shots on target, number of completed passes, fewer offsides penalties. You can dominate all the statistics, but what it comes down to is, can you capitalize when you've got opportunities to score? Because all you need, it's not about just the stats. It's about, can you convert when you've got opportunities to score? And this game, this isn't like football or basketball where it doesn't just come down to one quarter or one final possession. You have to play an entire game. Baseball is not just one inning. You got to play all 9 innings. Soccer, you can dominate a game for the entirety, for 88 minutes, and in a blink of an eye, if you blow an opportunity on an attack, the other team can score on a counterattack in a matter of seconds, and that's exactly what happened yesterday. You had Spain that was clearly the more dominant team. They looked the part. They felt the part. They played like the more dominant team. The stats suggested it. They dominated possession, 65%. They possessed the ball. They had the advantage in total corners, 6 to just 1 corner for Italy. Shots on goal, 16 shots for Spain, just 7 for Italy. They had fewer offsides penalties. All the stats were in favor of the Spaniards. And so entering the second half, at the 59th minute, you got Spain starting to penetrate, and they get a good clean shot on goal. And then the goalkeeper, Donnarumma, for Italy, he makes the catch, quickly outlets and rolls it past his defensive back. And next thing you know, Federico Chiesa scores on the other end. Hope I pronounced his name right. Yeah, Chiesa scores on the other end, on the counter. So you have an attack opportunity for Spain. They can't convert, even though they've dominated the game from start to finish. And in 30 seconds on the counter, you have a quick outlet up to your forward, and he scores on the other end, and it puts Italy up by 1. And that's how quickly things can change in soccer. That's what makes it so unpredictable, is it's not about possession. It's not about opportunities. Can you convert and capitalize on those opportunities? Now, Spain did provide the equalizer. They ran a nice combination play, and they were able to tie it up. But then neither team scored a goal in extra time, and it goes to a penalty shootout. And this is what happens when you go to a penalty shootout. You take away and you remove and omit skill and talent, because at the end of the day, when you get to the penalty kicks, it's not about skill. It's not about talent. It's about, do you have the composure? Do you possess the poise? Can you block out the noise? And from 12 yards away, mano a mano between the penalty kicker and the goalie, can you score from 12 yards out with a cacophony of noise cascading down in your direction? That's all it comes down to at that point. Doesn't matter how you've played the whole game. Doesn't matter how many shots you've had. Doesn't matter the impact that you've had. We saw France losing to Switzerland. The best player, arguably, in the world, Kylian Mbappe, missed a penalty kick. No one's going to argue that Switzerland has any guys better than Kylian Mbappe. They're not more skilled. He just missed a penalty kick. And it can be that's how these scenarios can play out. And so you had both of these teams very timid at first. Both teams missed their first penalty kick, and then Italy pulled away. But you're Spain, you wake up today, you're saying to yourself, we should have won this game. We dominated every facet of the game, but one blown counterattack 30 seconds later, again, that happened in the 59th minute. Spain had their clean shot on goal. By the 60th minute, Italy scored. So that's what makes fascinating, and that's what makes soccer, and in particular this matchup, so interesting, was the fact that you had, just in a matter of moments, the momentum fluctuate and the confidence permeate throughout the entire bench and the entire club. And so now you got Italy, once again, opportunity to win the European Championship for their first time since 1968, to be their second. It could be their second European Championship. They're waiting the winner of England and Denmark, who both of those teams have had tremendous runs this European Championship. So it's extremely interesting. It's extremely interesting for sure. Morning Joe, right here on J&J Media Network, Facebook Live, Twitter, and on YouTube. Mondays and Wednesday mornings, 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 10 to 11 Central, and 8 to 9 a.m. Pacific. Make sure to subscribe to my YouTube page, follow on Twitter and Instagram all that jazz. So transitioning to the NFL, Trevor Lawrence officially signed his rookie contract, officially inked his rookie deal to be the quarterback of the Jacksonville Jaguars, the number 1 overall pick. Signed his rookie contract, $36.8 million rookie contract, $24 million signing bonus for Trevor Lawrence. And listen, Trevor Lawrence has been a winner everywhere he's gone. So naturally it poses the question, well, what type of season will he have with the Jacksonville Jaguars? In 32 games played in college, or actually 36, he was 34-2 at Clemson. Never lost a regular season game, led Clemson to the national title in 2018. Both times, every single year he's reached the college football playoff. So this is a guy that has accomplished so much. And again, he has the 3rd best winning percentage by a starting quarterback who's played a minimum of 30 games dating back to 1978. Undefeated in the regular season. Never lost a single regular season game when he's played. So he's been the ultimate winner. And obviously he's drawn comparisons to Andrew Luck and John Elway. And when you transition to the NFL, and especially for football in general, you can have the most talented quarterback, but it's the ultimate team sport. So you need everyone to be clicking together. A great quarterback can win you some games, but they can't always mask over every single deficiency. Now, when you look at the Jacksonville Jaguars, the good thing they have going for them is they're in the AFC South, which is arguably the 2nd worst division in football, right in front of the NFC East. Although I do think the NFC East will be better this year. But when I look at their schedule, I mean, look, even John Elway in his first year with the Broncos in 1983 went 4-6. Even he, who was this prodigy, couldn't win in his first season. So when I look at the Jacksonville Jaguars schedule right now, you've got at the Texans, versus the Broncos, versus the Cardinals, at the Bengals, versus the Titans, versus the Dolphins, at the Seahawks, versus the Bills, at the Colts, versus the 49ers, versus the Falcons, at the Rams, at the Titans, versus the Texans, at the Jets, at Patriots, and versus the Indianapolis Colts. That's a tough first-year schedule. And to be honest, I think that the Jacksonville Jaguars as a whole will go 6-11, 6 wins and 11 losses. But this isn't about how the team's going to perform, but how I think Trevor Lawrence individually will perform. Now, if you were to look at the past 5 quarterbacks taken number 1 overall in the NFL draft, so Jameis Winston in 2015, Jared Goff in 2016. Myles Garrett was taken in 2017. So Baker Mayfield in 2018, Kyler Murray in 2019, and Joe Burrow last year. If you look at all those quarterbacks, with the exception of one in Jared Goff, who was a little bit of an outlier, all the other ones fared pretty similarly over the season. You had Jameis Winston, who threw for over 4,000 yards, 22 touchdowns, 15 interceptions, 58% completion, 6-10 record. Jared Goff, of course, in his first year with the Rams, he had Jeff Fisher as the head coach, who was awful, so I don't look at those stats because we know that we can attribute much of the lack of success to Jeff Fisher. But so when Sean McVay took over in his second season, Jared Goff, 3,800 yards, 28 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, 62% completion, and the Rams made the playoffs. They won 11 games and lost 5. Now, I'm not anticipating that type of season, but these next 3 are very similar and seem to be along the same lines as what I'm expecting to see from Trevor Lawrence. Excuse me. You have Baker Mayfield, who in 2018, his rookie year, 3,700 yards, 27 touchdowns, 14 picks, 64% completion percentage, 7-8-1 record. Kyler Murray, in his first season, 3,700 yards, 20 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, 64.4% completion percentage, 5-10 and 1 record. And Joe Burrow, had he not torn his ACL in 10 games, he was on path for similar stats. He was at 2,600 yards, nearly 27, 13 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, 65% completion percentage. They had a worse record, but the stats were pretty much the same. And so for me, when I look at Trevor Lawrence and I see that he's got Travis Etienne and he's got DJ Chark and he's got Marvin Jones Jr., he's got a couple pieces there. So I predict that he's probably going to throw somewhere around 3,800 yards, probably 22, 23 touchdowns and 8 interceptions. He rarely intercepted the ball. He rarely threw interceptions in college. He was known for his accuracy. He'll probably complete 65% of his passes, and I think the Jaguars will go 6-11. Now that there's a 17th game added towards the end of the schedule. But even if people, I think he'll finish second in offensive rookie of the year behind Kyle Pitts for the Atlanta Falcons. But even if you looked at Trevor Lawrence at Clemson, he was never a volume thrower. Trevor Lawrence at Clemson was never about just trying to rack up yards, rack up stats. He played as long as he had to and threw enough times for Clemson to win the game. Then Dabo Swinney would pull him from the game in the third quarter when they would win. He rarely was deliberately trying to throw for 400 yards in a game or 350 in a game. Most of the time, he was averaging like 280 yards per game, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions in college. Those were his stats. So I think that when you look at the expectations of this team, 6-11 seems pretty optimistic for the Jacksonville Jaguars. And I think that individually, he'll be great because he's got great pocket presence. He's tall, he's athletic, he's mobile. He doesn't have enough pieces around him to win too many games. And I think that he doesn't have enough. I think he doesn't have enough weapons to be able to throw for over 4,000 yards this upcoming year. But I think he can finish with 3,800 yards. And again, he's always been accurate. That's been the thing touted about him. He's got great vision, puts the ball on the money. Receivers don't lead him. He leads receivers. He throws to an open area that receivers can get to. He doesn't wait for receivers to get fully open and then hit them in stride. So I think he'll have a great season. I just don't think it'll be reflected in his record. But I don't think there's any problem with that. Now, final topic of the day before my Malkin's moments. Cutting it a little bit shorter today. So the Olympics in Tokyo are taking place in a couple of weeks. And so the United States track and field governing body just announced that Olympic and decorated sprinter Sha'Carri Richardson was left off the relay race roster and banned from the Olympics, at least for the first 30 days, because that's what her sanction is missing 30 days. And the reason why they said that they're leaving her off the relay race, which also bans her from participating in the 100-meter race, which is what she's known for, is because she tested positive for weed when she admitted to smoking weed as a antidepressant, as an outlet to grieve after she lost her mom. I think that we live in a society today where everyone's attitudes towards weed has been changing drastically. And I think that it's archaic. I think that it's antiquated. And to be perfectly honest, I think that the USA Track and Field governing body and the International Olympics Committee should be ashamed and should be embarrassed that you are banning and depriving one of the world-class athletes for engaging in something that studies have proved, and studies have proven, there have been multiple studies that have proven that weed doesn't enhance an athlete's performance. We obviously know about in sports how they've had ubiquitous policies surrounding illicit substances and steroids and performance enhancing drugs. And I get all that. The rules are the rules. And apparently the USA track and field, they tried to absolve themselves of blame, and they assigned the blame only to the International Olympics Committee, saying that we sympathize with Sha'Carri Richardson, and we wish that the International Olympics Committee would reevaluate their rigid rules, but there's nothing we can do about it. The rules are the rules. And not only have our attitudes towards weed changed, we're starting to see it become more legalized. 18 states have legalized weed. 2 countries in Canada and Uruguay have legalized it. And to be honest, in the United States, it's heading in a path where it'll be federally legalized on a federal level very soon. I wouldn't be surprised if the next couple of years it's legalized federally. And so I understand directives. I understand legislation that's put in place, that's enacted to promote fairness and equality. And they don't want any potential benefits prior to the lead up of an event. But the 2 things that are noteworthy is if you're the USA Track and Field governing body, you should be ashamed, because it's your job to protect and vouch for your athletes, to represent you. This is a world-class sprinter who ran the 100-meter in 10.72 seconds. With those numbers, she became the 6th fastest woman of all time and the 4th fastest American woman in history with those stats. And instead, you're not going to vouch hard for her to be a member of the team, to be able to rejoin the team. You're just going to acquiesce to the International Olympics Committee. I think that they can do more. I think that they can absolutely do more. And to be honest, if you look at the International Olympics Committee, the mere fact that the sanction only lasts 30 days, which actually makes Sha'Carri Richardson eligible to rejoin the team for some of the final events, for some of the final relays, I think speaks volumes and actually highlights that on a general level, the International Olympics Committee clearly tolerates weed. Because if they truly didn't tolerate weed, then she'd be banned altogether from the Olympics. She wouldn't even be eligible to rejoin the team for any future events. I mean, think about it. If someone really is that, they're trying to apply such rigid rules, and they really have an attitude that discourages using weed at all, and they're trying to ban it altogether, well, then why would you make the athlete still eligible to participate? And that's really what it comes down to for me, is that I don't think they would have technically deemed her eligible at all if that was truly, in fact, their attitude towards weed. Now, again, I'm not a smoker, but I do think that it's extremely punitive and it's unnecessarily cruel, because you're talking about people who devote their life. They train for years for this opportunity once every 4 years to claim 10 seconds to 60 seconds of glory. That's what they're gunning for. You train 4 years, tooth and nail, night and day, for 10 to 60 seconds of glory. And someone is stripping you of that opportunity. Again, I understand that rules are rules, and they've been set in place. And the International Olympics Committee, that's the position they've wanted to take. I get it. That's fine. They're entitled to do that. But I'm not going to absolve the USA Track and Field governing body for claiming to sympathize with Sha'Carri Richardson. And at the end of the day, your actions speak louder than words. Because if you truly sympathize, then you'd probably say something to the International Olympics Committee on her behalf. And right now you haven't done that. Again, you've got these world-class athletes, and you're depriving them of an opportunity to compete because of your rigidity and your refusal to adapt with the times and to modify your rules. And so I would just implore the International Olympics Committee to reconsider modifying these rules. Again, I'm not a smoker, but I can sympathize with someone who's trying to deal with trauma. You realize that what you did was you banned an Olympic sprinter from participating in the Tokyo Olympics this year because she turned to weed as an outlet to grieve for her departed mother. If you can sleep at night knowing you did that, then by all means, you do you. I can't think like that personally. So I think that they should really consider modifying and changing. That's me. Okay, finally, Malkin's moments. Have a lot of Malkin's moments, especially from Wimbledon that's taking place. Novak Djokovic is currently playing in pursuit of a semifinals berth. He's been absolutely sensational. He has played now, Novak Djokovic, reached his 50th Grand Slam quarterfinal that he's participating in. This is a two-time defending Wimbledon champion. He's won the last 2 times. He's won 5 Wimbledon championships. The 12th quarterfinal berth at Wimbledon for him. That ties him with Arthur Gore for 3rd place on the men's all-time list, behind Roger Federer with 18 and Jimmy Connors with 14. He's the 5th player ever to reach 50 Grand Slam quarterfinals. He joins Federer with 58, Serena Williams with 54, and Chrissy Evert with 54, and Martina Navratilova with 53, according to ESPN stats. Roger Federer became the oldest player at 39 in men's tennis to reach the quarterfinals at Wimbledon in the Open era. He had a 3-set win over Lorenzo Sonego. Roger Federer just continues to amaze, continues to defy the odds. He's been so elegant and so smooth and so fluid with everything. That's what makes him so great, is how easy he makes everything look. He's been absolutely fantastic. Martin Fucsovics became the first Hungarian man to reach the Wimbledon quarterfinals since 1948. He finally beat Andrei Rublev, who he had lost to, the Russian. He had lost him 4 times earlier this year. So to be able to get some revenge in a Grand Slam and in Wimbledon, that's extremely impressive. He became the first Hungarian man since 1981 to reach the quarterfinals of any Grand Slam tournament, and the first since Josef Asboth in 1948 to do so at Wimbledon. Extremely, extremely impressive. Couple more with tennis. Matteo Berrettini became the first Italian man in 23 years to reach the Wimbledon quarterfinals. He won easily in straight sets in his round of 16 match. And Ons Jabeur, she became the first Arab woman to reach the Wimbledon quarterfinals by beating former French Open champion Iga Swiatek in 3 sets. She became the first Arab woman to reach that stage at any Grand Slam tournament. So fantastic to her. Ash Barty reached her first ever quarterfinals for the first time at Wimbledon in her career. The #1 seed. She's been fantastic this tournament. And now transitioning to the NBA, a couple notable performances with the Phoenix Suns. So the Phoenix Suns, first of all, broke an NBA record yesterday for most consecutive free throws made. They made 24 consecutive free throws at one point. They ultimately missed one late free throw, finished 25 of 26 from the three-point line. Chris Paul and Devin Booker became the first. They joined a list, just becoming the third set of teammates to each score 25-plus points in their NBA Finals debut. They joined Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook with the Oklahoma City Thunder in 2012, and then with the Orlando Magic, Shaquille O'Neal and Penny Hardaway in 1995. Finally, the 73 combined points by Chris Paul are the most, first of all, he's ever had over a 2-game span in his postseason career, and Paul became just the 4th player in league history. He joins former Suns guard Steve Nash and Kevin Johnson, along with the great Oscar Robertson, to total 70-plus points on 65% shooting and 15 assists over 2 games in the playoffs. Appreciate you joining me. That's all the time that I got for you today. You've been watching and listening to Morning Joe right here on J&J Media Network, Facebook Live, Twitter, and on YouTube. Every Monday and Wednesday morning, I'm Jonah Malkin on YouTube, Facebook Live, and Twitter. Make sure to subscribe to my YouTube page, Morning Joe with Jonah Malkin. Follow me at that same headline on Twitter, or Jonah Malkin on Twitter and on Instagram. And as always, hope you had a great 4th of July weekend, and hope you have a great rest of your morning.